Hey guys, Malcolm here, Survival Know-How, and today I'm talking to the guys out there that know in the back of their minds that they should be prepping, that they should be saving up, but they're just not. You know, they say to themselves, well, I can't afford an underground bunker, so why even bother? I can't afford 10 AR-15s, so why bother? I'm not going to be able to survive the zombie apocalypse, so why even bother? You guys are looking at it all wrong, but don't worry, I'm here to help. Today, I'm bringing you 10 tips for new preppers. Stay tuned. Start small. Don't start planning for the zombie apocalypse or some kind of global pandemic, okay? Don't even plan for a national pandemic, okay? When I first started prepping, it was because the place that I lived at, we would lose power during any storm that we have. And my first preps were a bag that I put together for these blackouts that we would get, right? If I were to lose power for 24 hours, I wanted to have enough supplies that I would be ready. It was flashlights, some candles, some ramen noodles, and a propane cooker. That was my first preps, okay? I was planning for a 24-hour blackout. That's all you guys need to do for your first preps is get enough supplies that you'd be okay doing a 24-hour blackout, and then expand on that. What if you had to go without power for 72 hours, okay? What if you had to go without power for a week? Do you have enough supplies to last if you went out without power for a week? What if you had no power for a month? Would you have enough supplies then? Okay, so you keep on building on it. You start small, 1 day without power. Can you survive? Okay, then 3 days without power, a month without power, 6 months without power, a year without power. And then after you're at that point, then you can start thinking, well, what if there's a global pandemic and everybody dies except for me, okay? But don't start planning for that until you have everything else covered. Don't start planning for a global pandemic if you don't even have enough supplies for you to last a week in your own home without any power or water. So start small. The first preps that you should be buying is food and water. For some reason, when people first get into prepping, the first thing they want to go buy is a gun. And not just a gun, they want to have the biggest, baddest gun they can afford, and then just stocked full of ammunition, right? And people spend an incredible amount of money on weapons and ammunition, and they completely overlook food and water, right? The basic two necessities. Your priorities of survival do not change whether you're out in the wilderness or in your own home. Okay, you can survive for 3 days without water, about 3 weeks without food. That needs to be your first priorities and the first preps that you buy. You don't have to buy them all at once. What I started doing is every time I go to the grocery store, I would pick up a few extra cans of food, and you'd be very surprised how quickly that can add up, right? Make it a goal that every time you go to the grocery store, which is probably once a week, spend $5 on canned food. That is it. Usually you can get canned food for about 50 cents, right? For some beans or green beans or, some veggies. 50 cents a can, so that's 10 cans that you can buy with $5, right? That 10 cans is enough for you to live off of a few days. Gallons of water cost about $1 at a grocery store. So $5 will buy you 5 gallons of water. Start developing your own skills, right? Prepping is not just about stuff that you can buy, it's about developing your mind up here and your skills. So the skills that I'm talking about are like first aid, okay? First aid is incredibly important. Starting fire. If your power goes out and you have no matches or lighters, are you gonna be able to start a fire, keep your family warm? Water purification is another skill that's very important. You need to know the difference between purification and simply filtering water. Food acquisition. Let's say you run out of your supplies in your house and you have to actually go out in the wilderness. Are you going to be able to catch a squirrel to feed your family? Are you going to be able to catch a fish to feed your family? All right, so start thinking about other skills that you can develop within yourself that will help you in a survival situation, whether it's an urban survival situation or a wilderness survival situation. So don't focus on just buying stuff. Instead, start focusing on developing yourself and developing your skills and developing your knowledge of survival. Start building a prepper community. A lot of people don't want to advertise that they're a prepper, right? Maybe because they're a little embarrassed because all the yahoos on doomsday preppers that make us look crazy. But I still talk about it with my friends and my coworkers, and I try to feel out who else is in this community. So if you have coworkers, friends, neighbors that are also preppers, that's a really helpful thing to know in a really shitty situation. And hell, maybe you can even convince some of your coworkers or friends to become preppers and start becoming more self-reliant. Tailor your preps to your geographical location. So if you're up north and it gets very cold in the wintertime, you really need to have a way of heating your home and keeping you and your family warm. If you're down south, maybe keeping warm isn't your priority. Maybe keeping cool in the hot summers is your priority. You can die just as easily from overheating as you can from freezing. Also think about water. If you are near a source of fresh water, then maybe your preps don't have to focus as much on water. If you're not near a clean source of water, then you need to develop a game plan for that. Either collecting rainwater from your gutters or just stockpiling gallons and gallons of water. But your geographical location and your surroundings will play a big factor into what preps you need to prioritize. Develop a plan B. So bugging in is always going to be your plan A, okay? But you do need to have a plan B, which is bugging out. If you're without power for long enough and you're running out of food, running out of water, you're eventually going to have to leave your geographical area and go someplace else. And this is where the concept of a bug out bag comes in place. As a rule of thumb, you want to have enough supplies in your bug out bag to last you for about 72 hours. So the 72 hours of food and water and a way of creating fire and shelter. You don't want to just have a bug out bag, you want to have a plan of where you're going to go. But keep in mind that bugging out is never your plan A, okay? If you have a perfectly good shelter and you have enough food and water, you shouldn't have to bug out. Bugging in is your plan A, bugging out is your plan B. Practice with your preps, okay? Don't just stockpile everything and throw it in the attic and forget about it, okay? You need to practice with them. An example of this is when I first started building my bag for when we had power outages, I threw candles in the bag thinking, oh, I'm good to go, man. The next time I had a power outage, I went to light the candles and I realized I had no candle holders whatsoever in my house. So I had candles, great, but I had no way of sticking them upright and propping them and no safe way of doing it. So they're pretty much useless, okay? That's because I didn't practice with them. Once a year, twice a year, bring your preps out and cook a meal with them, Get familiar with your propane burner, get familiar with how to cook your MREs or your freeze-dried food. Having the gear is not enough. You have to have the experience and the knowledge of how to use it as well. Start creating a list to help you stay organized, right? Right now, just go ahead and jot down everything that you think that you would need in a survival situation, okay? And everything that you want to buy. So maybe you want to buy some thermal blankets, you need some more matches or lighters, you need some propane burners, you need a lot of food, you need a lot of water. Just create a list of everything you need and then just start knocking it out one at a time. You don't have to buy everything all at once. If you set a goal for once a month, you buy something on that list, it'll accumulate very rapidly. You'll be very surprised how quickly your preps will accumulate. But create lists just to stay organized and make sure you have all your basics covered. Get into shape. Our society has offered us the luxury of letting ourselves go and still being a functional part of society. But once society kind of breaks down or we're isolated from it, you can't be out of shape and expect to survive. You need to learn how to fend for yourself and live independently. And living independently and being out of shape, like these two things just do not go together. Let's say your only source of water might be 3 miles away. Are you going to be able to hike 3 miles and 3 miles back carrying a couple gallons of water? I know I can, but not everybody out there will be able to do that. And aside from the strenuous physical activities that is involved in a survival situation, there's also the health factor. If it's a really bad storm and trees are knocked down and you're isolated, right? Nobody can get to your house and you have a heart attack because you're out of shape. What are you gonna do? Game over at that point. You're not gonna be able to get to a hospital on time. Learn first aid. In a survival situation, first aid is going to be extremely important to know. Just some basic first aid. You don't need to learn how to become a brain surgeon, just some basic knowledge about your human body and basic conditions, you know. What are the symptoms of dehydration? What are the symptoms of heat stroke? You know, how do you properly apply a tourniquet or properly splint a broken bone? How do you properly bandage a deep wound? You know, just some basic knowledge like that can prove absolutely invaluable. When you're separated from the rest of the community and an ambulance is not just a phone call away, you know, your life and your family lives are in your own hands. So there you have it, guys. That is my 10 tips for new preppers. I really think the most important one there is start small. It's very easy to get overwhelmed within this field, but just start small, guys. Every month, every week, just buy another item or so. Create lists and start going down that list. And remember, guys, it's not just about the gear that you own, it's about the knowledge that you have up here. If you guys have any other good tips for new preppers, go ahead and leave them down in the comment section below. And if you are a new prepper, go ahead and check them out down there. I personally always end up learning a lot from the comment section below these videos. The prepper and survival community on YouTube is a great community. They're always very friendly, very knowledgeable, and they're always very eager to share their knowledge down in the comment section below. If you guys are new to my channel, hit that big red subscribe button down below. I do a lot of videos about prepping and survival. And remember, guys, knowledge weighs nothing. So long.